I sat in my old pickup truck, the engine still hot after a long, dragging day at the electronics factory. Another late shift with numbers and circuits dancing in my head, refusing to let go. I'm Mason Turner, 35 years old, an ordinary electronics engineer in Richmond, Virginia. My life revolves around wires, circuit boards, and late nights coming home with an aching body. Today it was pitch dark outside, with rain starting to drizzle on the windshield, but I didn't want to go home right away. Home, now just me and the cold, empty spaces. I decided to stop at the small roadside diner, the familiar one with flickering neon lights and the smell of burnt hamburgers. Just a bit of quiet, a quick meal, then I'd head back, curl up under the blankets and try to forget everything. I pushed the door open, the bell jingling like a familiar greeting. The place was nearly empty, just a few truck drivers in the corner sipping thick black coffee. I chose a table near the window, ordered a burger and fries along with a can of soda. I just wanted to sit quietly, watch the rain fall outside the window and let my mind drift aimlessly. My life these past few years had been like an endless loop. Go to work, come home, sleep, and repeat. Everything monotonous, boring, with only the dull ache in my heart that never faded. It had been 5 years since my mother disappeared, the woman who had devoted her entire life to protecting me. I took the first bite of the burger, the salty taste of the meat hitting my nose, but it didn't taste good. On the diner wall, the old TV was crackling with static, the anchor saying something about the weather. I wasn't paying much attention until the news switched to the social segment. Today we're talking about the unfortunate fates of the homeless in Pittsburgh. The female reporter's voice rang out, accompanied by images of pouring rain on the screen. I looked up, not sure why. Maybe because the rain outside was getting heavier, or because I was tired and needed something to distract me. The first images showed elderly people huddled under bridges, clothes soaked through, hands clutching trash bags as blankets. My heart tightened a little. I'd thought about them before, those people forgotten by society, but I'd never stopped to do anything. My own life was messy enough already. Then the camera zoomed in on a group under the Monongahela Bridge. Rain was pouring down like a torrent, thunder rumbling in the distance. The reporter in a bright yellow raincoat was interviewing an old man with a silver beard. But then the camera shifted to an elderly woman sitting alone in the corner. She wrapped a tattered gray scarf tightly around herself, rainwater dripping from her disheveled silver hair. Her face was wrinkled, her eyes empty as they stared into space, and on her lips was a faint, listless smile as if she were trying to hide her pain. My heart skipped a beat. There was something familiar about her, but I wasn't sure. The reporter bent down, microphone close to her mouth. "Can you tell us your name, ma'am? How long have you been here?" She shook her head slowly, her voice weak and trembling. I don't remember. I don't remember anything." Then she paused, her eyes blinking slightly as if trying to rummage through her memories. "Just remember, my son. My son's name is Mason. He's a good boy." My heart stopped. The burger fell from my hand, rolling across the table. Mason, that's my name. And her face. Oh God, the small scar on her left temple. The one from when she fell back when she was a nurse, that heartbreakingly familiar face, though much more gaunt now. It was my mother. Joanne Turner, the kindest woman I'd ever known. 5 years ago, she left home without a word goodbye, leaving only pain for me. I'd searched for her everywhere. Posted flyers, reported to the police, hired private investigators. Everything was hopeless. I thought she was dead, or lost somewhere in this vast world. But now, there she was on TV, homeless under the bridge, huddled in the rain. My heart constricted like someone was squeezing it. My hands trembled, the soda can tipping over, spilling everywhere on the table. "No way," I whispered, my voice breaking. My eyes were glued to the screen, hoping it was just a hallucination. But no, the reporter was still asking her more, and she just shook her head, that faint smile still hanging on her lips. She, my mother, was now a homeless person, battered by the rain, forgotten by the world. Memories flooded back like a torrent. Mom making breakfast for me every morning, Mom wiping my tears when Dad hit me, Mom smiling kindly when I graduated college. How much had she endured so I could have the life I have today? And I'd let her end up lost like this? I bolted out of the diner, ignoring the downpour cascading like a waterfall. The cold rain slapped my face, soaking through my jacket, but I felt nothing but the tearing pain in my heart. The truck engine roared to life, tires spinning on the wet road. Pittsburgh was 6 hours away by car, but I had to go. I had to find her. The journey to find my mother, the one I thought was gone forever, started here. My heart pounded, a mix of excitement and fear. She was alive, but would I make it in time? The highway was pitch black, headlights flashing sporadically on the slick road. I gripped the steering wheel tightly, trying to stay calm, but my mind was spinning. How did she end up in Pittsburgh? How long had she been wandering? Had Alzheimer's made her forget everything? Forget home? Forget me? I floored the accelerator, passing other cars, horns blaring, but I ignored them. The rain grew heavier, visibility blurring, but I couldn't stop. Every second that passed was a second she could be in danger. I pictured her sitting under the bridge, cold, hungry. How had she survived for 5 years? Who had helped her? Or had she been fighting alone? In the heavy silence of the truck cabin, childhood memories suddenly flooded back like an old film reel, faded yet painfully sharp. I saw myself as 8-year-old Mason again, huddled under the kitchen table in the small house on the outskirts of Richmond. It was an old wooden house with a leaky roof every time it rained, and the pungent smell of alcohol always lingering everywhere. My father, John Turner, was a tall but gaunt man with bloodshot eyes from drinking and gambling. He worked as a mechanic at the local garage, but his salary was never enough to cover his losing bets. Every evening, he came home with pent-up anger, unleashing it all on my mother and me. His shouts echoed in my memory. "I slave away to feed you lot, and you dare talk back?" Then came the punches, the slaps. I remember one time he shattered my mother's favorite vase, glass shards scattering across the floor, and I screamed in terror. My mother, Joanne, she was the barrier between me and that hell. She endured it silently, her trembling hands picking up the broken pieces, then turning to hug me close. "Don't be afraid, son. Dad's just tired." She hid the bruises under long sleeves, the dark marks I'd accidentally see when she changed clothes. But she still cooked dinner, even if it was sometimes just toasted bread with peanut butter because the fridge was empty. She lulled me to sleep with fairy tales, her voice warm like spring sunshine. "Tomorrow will be better, Mason. I promise." I believed her, because she was everything to me. She worked as a nurse at the local hospital with endlessly long shifts, but she never complained. She stood for hours at bedsides, changing bandages, giving injections, checking monitors, and comforting frightened patients. Then came home and still tried to smile at me. How could such a kind woman end up in that hellish marriage? I once asked her when I was a bit older. She just shook her head. "I love your father and I love you. That's enough." Then the accident happened. I was only 15 at that rebellious age, dreaming of the future. Dad drove home after a drunken night at the bar, crashing straight into a utility pole. He died on the spot, blood splattered across the windshield. I remember the funeral day with drizzling rain just like today. The coffin was lowered into the ground and I stood beside my mother, holding her hand tightly. She didn't cry, just squeezed my hand hard. "Now it's just the two of us, Mason." I looked at her, my eyes red and swollen, and promised, "I'll take care of you for the rest of my life. I promise." That vow was etched deep into my heart, an oath I thought I'd keep forever. After that, life changed. No more shouts, no more smell of alcohol. Mom and I lived simply. She worked less and I studied hard. I dove into books, numbers and math, and electrical circuits becoming my refuge. I graduated high school with a scholarship, then went to engineering college. Mom was so proud. She cut out the local newspaper article about me and stuck it on the kitchen wall. "My son's so talented," she said, her eyes sparkling. The college years flew by. I became an electronics engineer with a stable job at a factory near Richmond. The salary was enough for me to buy gifts for Mom and fix up the house. She still lived alone in the old house, but I visited often, buying groceries, taking her to doctor's appointments. She aged, her hair turning more silver, but her smile remained gentle. Then I met Brooke Allen. She was a finance specialist at a partner company, confident and captivating with her shiny blonde hair and radiant smile. We met at a conference. She approached me with a coffee in hand. "You look like someone who can fix anything." "Even my heart?" I laughed, and from then on my life seemed to gain color. Brooke was ambitious. She talked about future plans, mansions and luxury cars, traveling to Europe. She made me believe our family could have more happiness, that I could build a real home. We married after 2 years of dating, a small wedding at the local church. My mother sat in the front row, her eyes misty. "I'm happy for you, Mason." The early years of marriage were sweet as honey. We bought a house in the suburbs of Richmond, a modern apartment with a small garden. I left Mom living alone in the old house because she liked the quiet. But I visited weekly, taking her shopping, fixing the plumbing, listening to her old stories. Brooke supported it at first. She smiled and said, "She's wonderful, Mason. I understand why you love her so much. We had our first daughter, little Lily, and life seemed perfect. But then everything changed when Mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. At first, it was just small forgetfulness, like where she put her keys or a neighbor's name. But it got worse. She got lost on her way home, called me by my father's name. I worried, my heart tightening every time I thought of her alone. Mom can't live by herself anymore. I want to bring her home," I told Brooke. She nodded. "If that's what you think is best, I agree." I brought Mom to live with us, turning the guest room into her own space. At first, Brooke seemed sympathetic, maintaining politeness. She smiled at her mother-in-law, helped make tea, asked about old times. I believed our little family would stay stable, that love would overcome everything. But Alzheimer's progressed faster than I imagined. Mom started forgetting to turn off the stove, nearly burning the house once. She mixed up times, getting up at midnight to cook. Sometimes she called Brooke by another name, like Susan, her late sister's name. Brooke gradually changed. Her smiles became more forced. She avoided contact, slipping into another room when Mom talked. "She's messing everything up," she whispered to me one evening. "Our house feels like a nursing home now." I tried to explain. "Mom's sick, please be understanding." But Brooke saw her as a burden, disrupting the clean, orderly home she loved. My mother stayed silent, forcing a smile every time she was scolded. She knew, even if Alzheimer's stole her memories, she could still sense the coldness. I saw her sitting alone in the corner of the room, eyes staring into the distance, and my heart ached. I tried to keep the peace, working more to hire help, but my wife's coldness and my mother's decline left me exhausted. I was caught between the two most important women in my life, feeling helpless and stuck. One evening I lay awake, listening to Mom muttering in her sleep and Brooke's sighs beside me. "Choose, Mason. Her or me?" she'd once asked sharply. I didn't answer, just held my head. Life became a silent hell. No shouts like in my father's time, but no less painful. Then that fateful night came. I came home late after a shift, utterly exhausted. The house was unusually quiet, no TV sound that she usually watched, no smell of the herbal tea she liked to brew. I called, "Mom?" Her room was empty, the blankets still warm as if she'd just gotten up. My heart pounded, panic rising. "Brooke, where's Mom?" She came out from the living room casually. She said she was just going for a walk around here. Probably late, but it was pitch dark, drizzling rain, and Mom never went out alone at night. I rushed outside, running through the neighborhood, calling her name in the rain. "Mom! Joanne!" My voice echoed futilely in the dead of night. I called the police, posted flyers everywhere. Day after day, week after week, but no trace. Joanne never came back. The next morning, I found a letter in her desk drawer, the handwriting shaky. "My dear son, I don't want to be a bother anymore. I don't want to ruin your happiness with Brooke. Live well. I love you." Tears streamed down my face, my hand clenching the paper. She'd chosen to leave so we could be happy. How could she think that? I tormented myself. Why didn't I notice sooner? Why did I let her feel like a burden? 5 years passed like hell. I lived in torment, waking each day with a dull ache. Work became an escape, but at night I lay awake, imagining Mom lost somewhere. Brooke grew more distant, colder than ever. She avoided talking about Mom as if she'd never existed. Our marriage became a shell with only Lily as the fragile bond. I tried for my daughter, but the pain never faded. Now, on the highway, those memories made me tremble. I pulled over to the side for a moment, breathing heavily. The rain still fell and Pittsburgh was still far. I had to get there in time. She was waiting for me, even if she didn't remember. I floored the accelerator again, my heart pounding with anticipation. This journey wasn't just to find Mom, but to atone for the years I'd left her alone. I drove through the night, memories continuing to flood in, remembering the time Mom taught me to fix an old radio, her hands deftly connecting wires. "You'll be better than me," she said. I became an engineer because of her. But what had I given in return, only to let her wander lost? Tears blurred my eyes, but I wiped them away, focusing. The rain eased, dawn breaking. Pittsburgh was near. My heart tightened. Would she still be there? After 6 hours of continuous driving, my body was aching all over. My eyes stinging from lack of sleep. But adrenaline kept me alert, like an electric current running down my spine. I imagined the scene under the Monongahela Bridge, huddled figures, the musty smell of wet concrete, and my mother sitting there, wrapped tightly in her gray scarf. Was she cold? Was she hungry? I pressed the accelerator harder, overtaking a slow-moving truck, the horn blaring behind me. Pittsburgh gradually came into view, tall buildings peeking through the early morning fog. I turned onto the inner-city roads, following the GPS directions to the river area. My heart pounded wildly, anticipation making it hard to breathe. Finally, I arrived under the Monongahela Bridge, the spot where the news report was filmed. I parked hastily, slamming the car door, and rushed out into the chilly air. The atmosphere was heavy, a mix of garbage and river water scents. The group of homeless people sat scattered under the massive bridge pillars, some burning fires for warmth from cardboard boxes. I scanned around, my heart tightening at the sight of gaunt faces and vacant eyes. "Mom! Joanne Turner!" I called softly, my voice trembling, afraid of startling them. I approached closer, repeating her name, but only got weary headshakes or indifferent glances in return. No response from my mother. She wasn't here. My heart sank, fear surging. Had she moved on? Or worse, had she... No, I didn't dare think it. I rummaged through my wallet, pulling out an old photo of my mother, the one where she smiled gently in the home garden 5 years ago. Holding it up, I went from person to person. "Have you seen this woman? She's my mother." An elderly man with a silver beard leaning against a bridge pillar with a tattered blanket looked up. His eyes narrowed, then suddenly widened. "Oh, her? The old lady with the gray scarf, right? She passed out a few hours ago, collapsed on the ground. People called an ambulance and they took her to the hospital." My heart raced, a mix of excitement and fear. "Which hospital? Please tell me." He pointed toward the city center. "Presbyterian Hospital, about 10 minutes' drive from here." I thanked him profusely, shoving a bill into his hand, then dashed back to the truck. The engine roared and I sped through the streets, nearly running a red light. Presbyterian Hospital, that was my last hope. Was she okay? Or was I too late? I parked in the emergency lot, running into the hospital lobby with ragged breaths. The smell of disinfectant hit my nose, the beeping of machines echoing. I rushed to the reception desk, panting. "I'm looking for Joanne Turner. She was brought in after fainting under the bridge." The nurse checked the computer, then nodded. "Emergency room 5. She's stable now." I raced down the hallway, my heart thumping like a drum. The door opened, and I froze. My mother lay there on the stark white bed, so emaciated I almost didn't recognize her. Her skin was pale, her silver hair disheveled, an IV needle in her hand. She was motionless, eyes closed, only faint breathing. I approached, my trembling hand touching hers. It was ice cold. "Mom, it's me," I whispered, tears rolling down. The doctor entered, a middle-aged man with black-rimmed glasses. "Are you family?" I nodded, my voice breaking. "Her son. How is she?" He sighed, holding a results sheet. "She's stable after the fainting spell due to severe exhaustion and malnutrition. She's been wandering for a long time, hasn't she? But we did a CT scan and found end-stage brain cancer. It's metastasized widely. She has only weeks left, maybe 2 or 3. The world around me crumbled. I stood silent, clutching the paper, unable to speak. Brain cancer. How could this be? How much had she endured? 5 years of wandering, hunger, illness, and I had no idea. Tears fell, but I wiped them quickly. I had to be strong for her. I stayed at the hospital for many days, not leaving her bedside for a moment. I called in sick leave over the phone, not caring what my boss said. I took care of her, wiping her face, giving her water, telling old stories. "Remember, Mom, when I fixed that broken radio and you laughed forever?" Sometimes she opened her eyes, looking at me dazedly, then smiling weakly. We talked heart to heart, even though she forgot a lot. She spoke of Dad, of the old house, her voice halting. I held her hand, feeling the fragile warmth. During that time, Brooke didn't visit, didn't call, didn't ask. My phone stayed silent, as if her mother-in-law had never existed. I tried to ignore it, focusing all my energy on Mom. Was she busy? Or did she just not care? The pain piled up, but I didn't want to think about it. A week later, as I was feeding her oatmeal, the door opened. Brooke walked in, dressed impeccably like she was going to a meeting, an expensive bag over her shoulder. Her eyes paused on Mom, then flicked to me. My heart tightened, anxious about why she was here. "Brooke, you're here." She nodded, her voice ice cold. "I know. But Mason, keeping her like this is just costly and pointless. She's about to go anyway. Why waste money on treatments?" Her words cut like a knife. My mother lay listening, eyes slightly closed, her hand trembling lightly under the blanket. I turned, the pent-up anger from years exploding. "What did you say?" "She's my mother. Get out," I shouted, my voice echoing in the room. She froze, then her face flushed red. We stormed into the hallway, the argument erupting. "Are you crazy? I'm telling the truth. She's been a burden for so long." All I saw was the cold face of the woman I once called my wife, no love left, only contempt. "Get out. Don't ever come back," I yelled, my fists clenched. Brooke turned away, throwing a disdainful look before leaving, her high heels echoing. I breathed heavily, returning to the room, but then noticed an elderly woman standing at the end of the hallway, silently witnessing it all. She approached, her eyes full of compassion. You're Mason, right? I'm Gloria Spencer, Joanne's sister." I looked at her, recognizing the familiar face from distant memories, the old photo Mom kept, the 2 sisters laughing together. "Aunt Gloria, why are you here?" She hugged me, her voice trembling. "I've been searching for my sister for years, in vain." Then the police called, saying someone matched the description. I flew here right away. From that day, Aunt Gloria visited the hospital regularly, helping me care for Mom. She made tea, told old stories, making the hospital room less empty. I no longer felt alone, with her by my side, sharing memories of Mom. We wiped her down together, sang old lullabies. I tried to give Mom the most peaceful final days possible. Sometimes Joanne looked at me without recognizing who I was, calling me by a strange name. But her hand still gently grasped mine, like a familiar reflex from childhood. Time passed quickly, her condition worsening. I sat by the bed, holding her hand, talking about Lily, about life. She smiled weakly, her eyes cloudy. One afternoon, as dusk fell, orange sunlight streaming through the window, she suddenly became lucid. She looked at me, smiling. "Mason, My son. Her voice weak but clear. I leaned down, tears falling. Mom, I love you. In that moment, she closed her eyes, gently leaving the world in my arms. Her breathing stopped, peacefully. I sat silently by the bed for a long time, tears falling onto her hand. The belated tears of a son who had finally found his mother but without enough time to say sorry. I hugged her, tears flowing endlessly. Aunt Gloria stood beside me, gently placing a hand on my shoulder, saying nothing, only the heavy silence enveloping the room. The monitor's beeping stopped, the screen fading. I had found my mother but lost her forever. The pain surged within me, tearing at my chest, but mixed in was a bit of relief. She no longer had to suffer. I picked up my phone, calling Brooke. She didn't answer. I sat down in the cold chair by the bed, looking at Mom's still hand, and understood that from now on nothing would ever be the same. The hours that followed passed in a haze. The hospital procedures happened quickly, but to me they stretched on endlessly. I signed paperwork, arranged to bring my mother back to Richmond, where she was born and raised. Aunt Gloria stayed by my side, handling everything with me, from contacting the funeral services to calling a few old acquaintances. She didn't cry, just worked quietly as if trying to stay composed for both of us. She'll rest in a familiar place, she whispered as we left the hospital. The hearse carrying the coffin drove ahead, and I followed in my truck with Aunt Gloria in the passenger seat. The road back to Richmond was long and endless, passing through fields of faded yellow under the weak autumn sun. I gripped the steering wheel tightly, memories of my mother flooding back. Her sitting behind the bicycle, pedaling me to school, the wind tousling her hair and her laughing. Son, I'm proud of you. Now she lay in that cold wooden box. My heart constricted, anxious about the upcoming funeral. Would anyone come? Would Brooke show up? We arrived in Richmond late in the afternoon. I chose the small church on the outskirts where my mother used to pray every Sunday. It was an old wooden building with dark red tiled roofs surrounded by a peaceful garden. I wanted the funeral to be simple, fitting for who she was. No extravagance, just those who truly cared. Aunt Gloria agreed. She took care of the fresh flowers and white candles. The next morning, the coffin was placed in the center of the church, draped in white cloth, with a photo of my mother smiling gently on top. I stood beside it, wearing the only black suit I had, clutching a bouquet of white chrysanthemums, her favorite flower. My heart pounded, anxious as the church doors opened. Who would come? After 5 years of her disappearance, did anyone still remember? The funeral began at 10 a.m., under the soft sunlight filtering through the stained glass windows. The priest recited prayers, his deep voice echoing in the quiet space. Only Aunt Gloria sat in the front row next to a few of my mother's old neighbors. Mrs. Smith with her silver hair, Mr. Johnson leaning on his cane, trembling. They came to pay their respects, bringing fond memories of her. Mrs. Smith said, her voice emotional, "Joanne once helped me care for my child when he was sick. She was so kind." Mr. Johnson nodded. She always smiled, no matter how hard life was. I listened, tears silently falling. The atmosphere was solemn and simple, no loud sobs, just whispered sharing. I stood up, my voice trembling as I spoke about my mother. She was the strongest woman I knew. She sacrificed her whole life for her children, and now she's left peacefully. Everyone nodded. The air was heavy but warm. I thought the funeral would end smoothly, closing my pain. As the ceremony neared its end, with the priest reciting the final prayer, the church door suddenly opened with a soft creak. I looked up, my heart pounding. Brooke walked in, dressed impeccably. A long black dress, hair tied high, her eyes showing no emotion. She walked slowly down the aisle, her high heels clicking on the wooden floor. Everyone turned to look, murmurs rising. I froze, anticipation surging. She was here. Was it to offer condolences? For a moment, I imagined she came to share the loss, to hug me and say, "Are you okay?" After years of coldness, perhaps my mother's death would change her. I stood still, waiting, my heart thumping like a drum. But no. Brooke stopped in front of the coffin, looked at my mother for a moment, then turned to me, her flat voice echoing in the silent space. "Your mother's passing is probably for the best, Mason. No longer a burden to her children." Her words exploded like a bomb, resounding in the quiet church. The funeral atmosphere fell dead silent, only faint murmurs from the others. Mrs. Smith covering her mouth, Mr. Johnson shaking his head. I was stunned for a few seconds, my ears ringing, the world around me blurring. Those words, how could she say them? My mother, the woman who sacrificed her entire life for me, now called a burden? Years of endurance, torment, love for my mother, and contempt from Brooke built up and burst like a river breaking its dam. Blood rushed to my head, my vision darkening. I stepped forward, my feet heavy as lead, but anger propelled me. My hand slapped across Brooke's cheek with a sharp crack, echoing like thunder in the church. She staggered, holding her face, her expression shifting from shock to fury. "You bastard! How dare you hit me? You violent, worthless man hitting a woman!" She screamed, her voice shrill, tears streaming, not from pain but from rage. Everyone was stunned. The priest stopped his prayer. Aunt Gloria stood up, her face pale. I stood there, my hand trembling, but I felt no regret. "Get out!" I growled, my voice low but full of fury. Brooke glared at me, then turned and left the funeral, the door slamming shut behind her. I didn't look after her, turning back to my mother's coffin to finish the ceremony. My heart raced, a mix of anxiety and anger. I had crossed a line, but why did it feel so relieving? The priest continued, his voice shaky, and the ceremony ended in a tense atmosphere. As the coffin was lowered into the grave outside the church, the cool autumn wind blew, scattering faded leaves. I stood beside it, watching the coffin sink gradually into the earth, my heart constricting. Aunt Gloria placed a hand on my shoulder, comforting. "She's at rest now, Mason. You did well?" I gazed silently, like a final farewell to my mother, closing all the pain in stillness. Tears fell, but I didn't sob loudly. She was gone, taking with her so many beautiful memories. I thought about the years she endured my father, protected me, and now I had let her go without time to apologize. But perhaps somewhere she understood. After the funeral, people gradually left, leaving me and Aunt Gloria standing by the grave. She hugged me tightly, whispering, "Go home and rest, dear. I'll stay in Richmond for a few more days if you need me." I nodded, but my mind was blank. I drove home, the familiar road now seeming longer than ever. The house once filled with memories, the sound of Lily's laughter, the smell of Mom's baked goods, the evenings Brooke and I sat by the fireplace, was now just empty and cold. The door opened to a heavy atmosphere, as if the house itself was in mourning. Lily ran out to hug me, her eyes red and swollen. "Dad, where's Grandma?" I knelt down, holding her tight. "She's gone far away, my love, but she's always here in our hearts." Brooke wasn't there. She'd come home earlier, or rather she had never truly been present throughout the funeral. I sat down on the sofa, looking around at the family photos on the wall, and felt the pain surging. Everything had changed, and the divorce, I knew it was coming, would be the fatal blow. The next morning, Brooke returned with a carry-on suitcase, as if just back from a business trip. She showed no regret or remorse, no words of condolence, no comforting hug. Instead, she sat down at the kitchen table, her voice ice cold. "Mason, we need to talk." My heart constricted, anticipation surging. I knew what was coming. She pushed a stack of papers across the table. "The divorce petition. I've already signed it. And you should know I have someone else. He understands me better than you ever did." Her words cut like a knife. A lover? It turned out the rumors I'd vaguely heard were true. She openly admitted to him as if there was nothing to hide. I looked at the document, her signature sharp and precise, and felt the world collapsing. 5 years of marriage, 1 child, all shattered just because of accumulated bitter words and coldness. I didn't yell, didn't argue. I just nodded. "Fine. We'll handle it legally." The meetings to finalize the paperwork became hell. We met at the lawyer's office, the air stifling with the smell of old paper and stale coffee. Brooke didn't stop humiliating me, her shrill voice echoing, "You're a failure, Mason." Always clinging to the past, to that old hag of a mother. She was a stain that embarrassed me in front of my friends. Her words stabbed my heart like needles, a mix of anxiety and anger surging. A stain? My mother, the woman who sacrificed her entire life, called that. I remembered memories of her sitting and mending clothes for Brooke, smiling kindly despite her coldness, but I didn't respond. I just silently signed the papers, finishing the divorce proceedings as quickly as possible. Each meeting I gritted my teeth and endured, thinking of Lily waiting at home. "Dad, why is Mom angry?" she asked, and I just hugged her without answering. But my silence only fueled Brooke's hatred more. She was like a provoked beast, her eyes glaring every time we met. "You think silence is clever? You'll lose everything." She hired an expensive lawyer, a slick man with a fake smile. The lawsuit hit the court like a storm, demanding all the assets, the house, the car, even the savings I'd set aside for Lily. And worst of all, custody of our child. My heart pounded wildly as I read the petition, anxiety making it hard to breathe. How could she? Lily was everything to me. She slept on my shoulder every night, telling stories about school with bright eyes. But Brooke didn't stop. The lawsuit accused me of being abusive, irresponsible, with income insufficient to care for our daughter. Abusive? Because of that slap at the funeral. I remembered that moment, the anger exploding, but it was the only time I'd lost control. Now it had become a weapon against me. Then came the fabricated evidence. Brooke made it up. Photoshopped images where my face was pasted into scenes of violence, and edited audio recordings where my voice was distorted into crude words. I was stunned when I saw them in court, my hands trembling as I held the papers. Everything was twisted into a different story. I was no longer the dutiful son, the devoted father. The man who stayed up all night caring for his mother, taking Lily to school every morning. Now I was portrayed as a violent and unstable man, a dangerous and unreliable guy. "Your Honor, he hit me in front of everyone," Brooke sobbed, fake tears streaming down. I sat there, my heart racing chaotically, anxiously awaiting the verdict. How could I prove it? I had witnesses from the funeral, but her fabricated evidence was too sophisticated. Public opinion around me began to murmur. Friends called less, colleagues at the factory avoided eye contact when we met. "Heard you hit your wife?" one guy asked, whispering. I shook my head, but they believed what they saw on paper. The local newspaper articles reporting the divorce with sensational headlines. "Electronics engineer accused of domestic violence." I felt isolated, like I was being pushed to the fringes of society. For the first time in my life, I felt everything I'd tried to preserve. My honor, my family, my self-respect, slipping away from my grasp. Every morning I woke up looking at myself in the mirror, seeing a tired man with dark circles under his eyes. Lily asked, "Dad, why is everyone acting weird?" I hugged her, holding back tears. Anxiety surged. Would I lose my child? Lose everything? Those days, life was like a silent hell. I went to work with a heavy mind, the circuits on my workbench blurring before my eyes. My boss called me into his office, his voice sympathetic. "Mason, take a few days off. The company's in turmoil because of the rumors." I nodded, heading home early, but home was now just 4 cold walls. Lily played alone in the living room, the old doll her grandmother had given her lying discarded on the floor. I sat beside her, telling old stories about Mom, but my voice faltered. "Dad, will Mom come back?" she asked, her eyes innocent. I hugged her tight. "Mom's busy, my love, but Dad's always here." The words left my lips, and I knew I'd just lost another piece of my heart. Brooke called occasionally, but only to remind me about paperwork or demand to see Lily. "Don't think you've won," she said, her voice full of hatred. I stayed silent, hung up, then sat alone in the darkness, memories of my mother flooding back. How had she endured my father? How patient had she been? Now I was repeating that vicious cycle, but with a different kind of pain. When everything pushed me to the brink, savings depleted, my lawyer advising compromise and the trial looming, the phone rang in the quiet house. An unknown number, but I answered, my voice weary. Hello? On the other end was a familiar, warm voice. Mason, it's Aunt Gloria. I need to see you urgently. My heart pounded, anticipation surging. Aunt Gloria, my mother's sister, who had been by my side in her final days. She'd flown home after the funeral, but calling like this meant something important. Auntie, I'm in a mess, but come over. She said she'd arrive the next morning, and I hung up, lying awake all night. Was she bringing bad news, or just comfort? I stared at the dark ceiling, picturing her face so much like Mom's. The next morning, the sky was overcast, heavy gray clouds mirroring my mood. A knock sounded at the door. I opened it to find Aunt Gloria standing there in her old coat, bag in hand. She hugged me, saying nothing, just holding tight. You look so worn out, Mason. We sat at the kitchen table. I brewed strong black coffee, my hands trembling. Aunt Gloria looked around the house, her eyes pausing on the photo of Lily and Mom. Then she sighed. I heard about the divorce. You're suffering a lot, aren't you? I nodded, my voice breaking. I'm about to lose everything, Auntie. Brooke. She's fabricating stories, demanding custody of my daughter. Aunt Gloria was silent for a moment, then placed a thick folder and a large envelope on the table. The papers old but neatly organized. I'm here for something important. This is what your sister Joanne sent me before her memory loss got severe. My heart raced, anticipation making it hard to breathe. I opened the envelope, my hands shaking. Inside were bank documents, stocks, and a handwritten letter from Mom, her script shaky but clear. Aunt Gloria recounted slowly, her voice steady and warm. Before the Alzheimer's progressed badly, she came to see me. She entrusted her entire personal investments, over $10 million for me to manage temporarily. It was money she'd saved from her nursing salary, invested wisely over the years, but with a condition. Only give it to you if you live according to your conscience without falling into depravity or injustice. She said, Gloria, Mason's a good boy, but life sometimes pushes him to the edge. If he still holds on to his character, give it to him. I was stunned, speechless. $10 million? Mom, the austere woman who saved every penny, had that much? The feelings of humiliation, torment, and lost faith gradually faded, replaced by a rare ray of hope. Tears streamed down my face as I clutched the letter. I love you, Mason. Use this money to live well, not for hatred. Aunt Gloria looked at me, her eyes glistening. I've always believed in you, the dutiful, upright son. You might lose everything, but you've never lost your character. You cared for her until the very end, even as everything crumbled. I witnessed it all. She took my hand. Use this money to stand up, not to get revenge on Brooke, but to fight for justice. For Lily, for yourself. Her words were like a cool stream soothing the pain. I hugged her, sobbing uncontrollably for the first time since Mom passed. Hope flickered. With that money, I could hire a better lawyer, gather evidence, fight for Lily. But more importantly, it was the final trust Mom had bestowed. She knew I wouldn't falter no matter where life pushed me. In the days that followed, I spent many nights poring over the documents, the desk lamp burning bright into the wee hours. The papers were detailed, stocks, bonds, savings accounts. Mom had invested shrewdly from her youth thanks to advice from an accountant colleague at the hospital. I contacted a lawyer, a reputable middle-aged man, expensive but worth it. We can counter this, he said, his voice confident. I told him everything, the slap at the funeral, Brooke's insults, the fake evidence. He nodded. We need witnesses. I began the journey to find them. First was Lily's teacher, Mrs. Thompson, a kind woman at the elementary school. I met her on a drizzly afternoon sitting in the staff room. Mason, I know you're a good father. You pick her up in the rain, never miss a parent-teacher meeting. She agreed to testify, her voice emotional. I've seen you caring for her alone many times when your wife was busy. Then the old neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Wilson next door, who'd seen me pushing Lily's stroller on walks, feeding her when Brooke was away. You're a decent man, Mr. Wilson said, patting my shoulder. We'll go to court. Each meeting brought anxiety. Would they help? Would the evidence be strong enough? But they agreed, and I felt Mom watching over me. The money wasn't just assets. It was the trust she'd entrusted, like a reminder. Son, live right. I used part of it to hire a detective who verified Brooke's fake evidence. It turned out the photos were photoshopped, the audio clipped from an old argument. The lawyer smiled. We've got them now. Each step was heavy but filled with hope. I took Lily to the park, telling her about Grandma. She left Dad a gift, my love, so we can live better. She smiled, hugging me tight. Late at night, I knelt by Mom's grave, whispering, Mom, I won't let you down. The wind blew gently, leaves falling like a response. Anxiety about the trial rose high, but now I had weapons. Money, witnesses, and faith from Mom. Aunt Gloria called often. You're doing well. She'd be proud. I slept better, dreaming of Mom smiling kindly. The trial was approaching. I prepared meticulously. The lawyer outlined the plan. We'll turn the tables. I nodded, my heart pounding. Brooke didn't know about the money. She thought I was weak. But now I was ready. Hope glimmered, dispelling the darkness. Mom had saved me from beyond the grave. Then the day arrived. The divorce trial took place a few weeks later on a gloomy autumn morning. I wore my old suit, driving to the local courthouse in Richmond, my heart pounding like a drum. The parking lot was packed, the atmosphere heavy with the smell of paperwork and stale coffee. I stepped into the courtroom, the harsh fluorescent lights glaring down on the polished wooden benches. I sat in the defendant's row, my expression calm but deeply guarded, trying to hide the churning anxiety inside. In front of me was Brooke, dressed impeccably. A tight black skirt, hair tied high, her face as cold as stone. Behind her was her lawyer, a slick man with a thick folder, his fake smile flashing under the lights. She glanced at me once, her eyes full of contempt, as if I were just a loser. My heart constricted, but I didn't look back. The judge, a middle-aged woman with black-rimmed glasses, banged the gavel and the trial began. The courtroom air was stifling, the ceiling fan buzzing like a swarm of bees. Brooke's lawyer opened, his shrill voice piercing. Your Honor, the defendant is abusive, unstable, and unfit to parent. They presented the fabricated evidence, photoshopped images, edited recordings, and I sat there, my hands clenched under the table, anxiety making cold sweat break out. Brooke testified, fake tears streaming. He hit me in front of everyone, Your Honor. I'm afraid for our daughter. I gritted my teeth, remembering the slap at the funeral, the anger exploding from her insults to my mother. But now I had to stay calm. My lawyer stood up, his voice confident. We will prove all allegations are fabricated. During the examination, witnesses appeared one by one, and my heart raced chaotically each time the door opened. First was Lily's teacher, Mrs. Thompson, a kind woman with her silver hair tied high. She stepped onto the stand, her voice trembling but clear. I've taught Lily for 3 years now. Mr. Mason always picks her up in the rain, never misses a parent-teacher meeting. He's a devoted, patient father. She detailed the afternoons I waited outside the school gate, hugging Lily when she cried from a fall, helping with her homework. The judge nodded, taking notes, and Brooke frowned, her face paling slightly. Anxiety surged in me. This was the first step, but effective. Next were the neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, the elderly couple who'd lived next door for years. Mr. Wilson leaned on his cane as he stepped up, his voice deep and warm. I've seen Mason caring for his child alone many times. Never raised his voice or used violence. He's a good man, Your Honor. Mrs. Wilson added, When his wife was away, he cooked, lulled the child to sleep. We trust him. Their words were like a cool stream soothing my pain. I glanced at Brooke, seeing her clench her fists, her lawyer whispering something. The courtroom was silent, only the scratching of pens and my thumping heart. Then Aunt Gloria appeared, stepping onto the stand with a steady gait, her eyes glistening. "I'm the sister of Joanne Turner, Mason's mother. My nephew is a dutiful, honest son. He cared for my sister until the very end, even as everything fell apart." She recounted the hospital days, how I never left Mom's bedside, and that the slap at the funeral was just a moment of lost control due to the insult. "He's not abusive. He's a good person." The judge looked at her, nodding, and I saw Brooke bow her head, avoiding eyes. Anxiety mixed with hope. My witnesses were turning the tide. My lawyer presented the financial documents from the investment I'd legally inherited from Mom. Over $10 million, proving I had the means to raise our child stably. The defendant has solid assets and steady income from his engineering job. There's no reason to deny him custody. The judge flipped through the papers, frowning in consideration. Brooke whispered to her lawyer, her face paling. She hadn't expected that money, thinking I was broke. My heart pounded, anxiety making my hands ice cold. Would it be enough? Finally, the decisive moment. The judge called Lily. She walked into the courtroom in a cute pink dress, clutching my hand briefly before going to the stand. My heart constricted, anxiety surging. She was only 8. Would she be scared? The judge smiled gently. "Who do you want to live with, Lily?" My daughter looked up, her voice small but clear, echoing in the silent room. "I want to stay with Dad. He loves me so much." The courtroom fell silent for a few seconds, only the scratching of pens and my ragged breathing. Tears silently fell from my eyes. Her words cut through all accusations like a blade. Brooke bowed her head, her face ashen. The verdict was announced, custody awarded to Mason Turner. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath, as if the burden of years had finally been lifted. My legs trembled, but my heart felt light. The judge banged the gavel. "Case closed." Brooke stood, her face pale, lips pursed. She said nothing, just turned and left the courtroom amid everyone's stares, quietly, small, and defeated. Her lawyer awkwardly gathered his files while I hugged Lily tight, tears falling. "Dad won, my love." Aunt Gloria patted my shoulder, her eyes misty. "She'd be proud of you." After the trial, life changed. I sold the old house full of painful memories and bought a small apartment in the suburbs of Richmond with a lush green garden and a room for Lily. Our father-daughter life was simple but peaceful. Mornings dropping her at school, afternoons cooking, evenings telling stories about Grandma. No more tension, no more worries. Lily smiled more, drawing pictures of happy family and just Dad and her. I returned to work, colleagues congratulating. "Congrats, Mason. You deserve it." The rumors died down, public opinion shifting to support me. But I didn't care. I had Lily and Mom's legacy. Aunt Gloria visited often, bringing treats and stories about Mom, the woman who'd endured a lifetime just to leave her son lessons in love and kindness. She'd sit in the backyard under the autumn trees saying, "She once told me, love isn't possession but sacrifice." I listened, my heart warm, feeling Mom still beside me. Afternoons like that gave life more meaning, dispelling old pains. Then one autumn afternoon, as golden leaves fell outside the window, the doorbell rang. I opened it and froze. Brooke stood there, her face haggard, hair disheveled, eyes wet. She'd lost weight, her old dress mud-stained as if she'd walked a long way. My heart constricted, anxiety surging. What was she here for? Brooke's voice trembled, tears streaming. "Mason, I'm sorry. My lover left me. I want to reconcile. Give me a chance." Her words were like a whisper, full of desperation. I stood still, looking at the woman who was once my wife, my face no longer angry, just utterly cold. Memories flooded, years of coldness, bitter words at the hospital, at the funeral. She'd pushed me to the brink, now returning because she was alone. I stepped closer, my gaze direct, eyes sharp as a blade. Brooke bowed her head, tears splashing onto the floor, her hand trembling as she reached for mine. But I didn't extend my hand. My voice was curt, low and firm, echoing in the quiet space. Whatever was between us died the day my mother was buried. Leave, Brooke. She froze, trembling with fear and shame, her face paling. I turned back inside, the door closing behind me with a sharp slam, ending any chance of return. Through the crack I heard her sobbing, but my heart didn't stir. She had taught me. Love isn't enduring forever. I hugged Lily, whispering, "We're okay now, my love." Life continued without the shadow of the past. The months following the trial passed like a gentle river, sweeping away the fragments of old pain. I felt reborn, lighter, though the scar in my heart remained, a dull reminder of those hellish years. With the money my mother left behind, over $10 million, a staggering sum I still couldn't believe. Combined with the savings from my grueling shifts at the old factory, I decided to start anew. Not to build a grand empire, but just a small electronics workshop specializing in producing components. I rented an old warehouse on the outskirts of Richmond, a peaceful spot with lush green fields and birdsong every morning. The workshop wasn't large, just enough space for a few basic machines, workbenches, and a small office corner. I personally repaired the wiring, assembled tables and chairs, and painted the walls a soft gray. Mom's favorite color, as she said it, brought peace. Each time I held a wrench to tighten a screw, I remembered the afternoons when Mom taught me to fix an old radio. Her hands deftly connecting wires, her voice warm. "Son, patience is the key." Now I was using those very skills to build my future. In the early days, the workshop had just me and a young assistant named Jake, an enthusiastic but clumsy guy who required step-by-step guidance. We produced simple components, circuits for household appliances, boards for small computers. The first order came from a local company, just a few hundred parts, but holding the invoice made my heart race. "Mom, I've done it," I whispered to her photo on the desk. The money from Mom wasn't just capital, it was motivation. I used part of it to buy modern equipment, investing the rest safely without risks. Life fell into a rhythm. Every morning I woke early, brewed strong black coffee, then drove Lily to school. She sat behind me on the bike, her arms tight around my waist, giggling as the wind tousled her hair. "Dad, today I'm learning math. Will you teach me?" I nodded, stopping at the school gate, kissing her cheek. "I'll pick you up this afternoon, my love." Then I'd return to the workshop, diving into work, soldering circuits, quality checks, calling clients. The smell of burnt plastic, the hum of machines, all familiar like breathing. Evenings were the most sacred moments. Father and daughter ate together, simple meals like grilled meat with salad or vegetable soup Mom had taught me to make. We sat around the small wooden table, listening to soft music from the old radio, melancholic ballads that evoked the past but no longer hurt. Lily shared school stories. Today I drew a picture of Grandma Dad. She has such a kind smile. I listened, my eyes glistening, then told her about her grandmother, the patient woman who'd sacrificed her whole life. "Grandma used to lull you to sleep with this song, Lily. She said life is like a river, always flowing forward." She nodded, hugging me tight. "I love Grandma, and I love you too." Those moments dispelled fatigue, making me realize how simple happiness could be. No more Brooke, no more arguments, just father and daughter and warm memories. I taught Lily to fix broken toys just as Mom taught me, and she beamed when the toy car ran again. Life was fresh but solid, like the foundation of the workshop I'd built with my own hands. A year flew by in the blink of an eye. The workshop turned profitable, orders increasing, from small components to contracts with larger companies. I hired 2 more workers, turning the place into a small family. I changed a lot, becoming a more mature man, calm in the face of upheavals and forgiving of others' mistakes. No more impulsive anger, instead serenity, as Mom once taught. Anger only tires you out, Mason. That serenity led me to Elena Moore. I met her at a local charity event where I volunteered to help the homeless, a habit I'd kept since losing Mom. Elena worked for the charity organization, a woman around 35 with long brown hair cascading down, a smile as gentle as autumn's sun. She distributed food to elderly people huddled under bridges, her voice soft. "Here you go, sir. It's cold out." I helped her carry boxes and we talked about life, about unfortunate fates. Elena entered our father-daughter life gently like a breeze. At first, just afternoons when she'd visit, bringing homemade treats, playing with Lily. The girl liked her immediately. "Aunt Elena tells great stories, Dad." Elena warmed our little home with her smile and kindness. She cooked delicious meals, sang lullabies to Lily, and listened to my stories about Mom without judgment. "You're so strong, Mason," she said, placing her hand on mine, warm. We dated simply, walks in the park, coffee by the roadside, sharing pasts. Elena had divorced due to her husband's alcoholism, but she held no grudge. "Life taught me to forgive, to keep living." Her words echoed Mom's, opening my heart. Lily called her kind Aunt Elena, and gradually she became indispensable. Evenings, the three of us sat by the fireplace, listening to music, laughing, the house filled with joy again, banishing old shadows. We married after 3 years, a small wedding at the familiar church where Mom rested. Aunt Gloria was the bridesmaid. Lily scattered flowers, and Elena walked in a simple white dress, her eyes sparkling with happiness. "I love you, Mason," she whispered as we exchanged rings. We had a chubby baby boy together, little Jack, with Elena's blue eyes and a gentle smile like my mother's. Life was simple but full of laughter. Mornings dropping Lily at school, afternoons picking up Jack from daycare, evenings gathered for dinner. The workshop grew, but I wasn't ambitious. Just enough to support the family, leaving time for my wife and kids. No room for hatred or bitterness. I'd forgiven Brooke long ago, seeing her as a lesson. Elena taught me greater compassion. Everyone makes mistakes in life, my love. We did charity work together, with Elena leading and me following, distributing supplies to the homeless, reminding me of Mom. I still kept the habit of doing charity with my wife, often visiting shelters to help elderly homeless people, those forgotten like my mother years ago. Every weekend we'd drive to dark underpasses, bringing hot soup, old clothes, and a bit of warmth. Elena hugged the huddled old ladies, listening to their stories while I distributed items, remembering Mom sitting in the rain in Pittsburgh. "Thank you," an old man said, his hands trembling as he took the bowl. I smiled. "You're welcome, sir." Those moments healed wounds, making me realize life is fair in its own way, not through revenge, but atonement, through kindness. 2 years after the wedding, on a cold winter afternoon, I was with the charity group distributing soup at the local psychiatric hospital. The atmosphere was heavy with the smell of disinfectant and patients' whispers. We lined up to hand out supplies, Elena smiling gently beside me. Among the waiting line, gaunt figures, vacant eyes, I suddenly saw a familiar face. My heart pounded, anxiety surging. The woman was emaciated, her silver hair disheveled and tangled, her eyes blankly staring into space. Under an old blanket, she huddled, clutching a trash bag. I froze. It was Brooke, my ex-wife. Her once beautiful face now gaunt, deep wrinkles etched in, her eyes lacking their former cold sharpness. She muttered something, not recognizing me. I approached, my voice trembling as I asked the shelter manager, a middle-aged nurse with a weary tone. What's wrong with her?" The nurse sighed. "Brooke Allen, right? Schizophrenia. She's been wandering for years. Her parents brought her here last winter after finding her under a bridge. She often mumbles about an ex-husband but doesn't remember clearly." My heart constricted, memories flooding like a torrent. Brooke cold in court, bitter words at the funeral, then begging forgiveness at my door. Now she was here, shattered, paying life's price. I stood silent, looking at the woman who'd once destroyed my life. Amid old memories, anger, pain, and the present, I felt only inner peace. No more rage, no more resentment. Life had taught her a lesson, belated but just. I took a bowl of hot soup, adding a wool scarf Elena had knitted, and placed it in her hands. Brooke looked up, her eyes dazed, muttering, "Thank you," not recognizing me. I turned away, tears silently falling, not from regret but from realizing fate's cycle. The white chrysanthemum petals on the charity table rustled in the cold wind like a reminder that life's justice always comes, even if late. Elena hugged my shoulder. "Are you okay?" I nodded, smiling. "I'm fine now, my love." We continued distributing food, but in my heart everything closed. A painful chapter, now just a lesson. Now looking back on my journey, I, Mason Turner, realize life isn't always fair immediately, but it has its own way of balancing. I've learned that sacrifice and patience, like what my mother did, are the greatest strengths. She sacrificed her whole life for me, and the legacy she left isn't just money, but lessons in kindness. Don't let anger control you, it only exhausts you, as I nearly lost everything from that outburst at the funeral. Forgive, not for others, but for yourself, to live lighter. For those at rock bottom, like I was desperate in court, remember, hope always glimmers unexpectedly. My mother saved me from eternity. Perhaps everyone has an Aunt Gloria or a hidden legacy. My advice: live according to your conscience, care for loved ones, and don't fear starting over. Life is like a river, always flowing forward, and at the end, you'll find peace. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Elena. Thank you, Lily and Jack. You are everything.